Amazing with those mute buttons.
Yeah, anything you say will sound important.
Right. Certainly will sound loud. So a week ago, I was at a zikr. Some of you don't know what a zikr is, but it's a practice of chanting practice, mantric practice. And it was done at a dear friend of mine for 40 years, at her 60th birthday. And she's a talented person and knows a lot of talented people. But it was a small group. It was about maybe 35 people she was really close to. And many of them had no idea what a zikr was. Thought they were just coming to their friend's 60th birthday party. And first we had some poems were read, and there was very well-known actress, and she read, or recited, I guess, some Shakespeare. It was very beautiful. And there was someone else there who is a quite well-known musician who played some, and a dancer danced. It was really like a salon, you know, in 1920, but quite wonderful. And then at the end of it, she stood up and said, "And now we'll have zikr." Some people were looking around, what? Zikr? And her husband, who was going to lead the practice, said, "Well, nobody has to do it if they don't want to, you know, feel comfortable." And she stood up and said, "It's my birthday. It's my party. Everybody does zikr." And so people now were openly asking, "What's zikr?" So I said, "Look, we all belong to this cult. And this is what the practice we do in the cult." For some odd reason, I wasn't quite serious, everybody thought, "Oh, well, that's a perfectly natural explanation. Okay, let's do it." So all these people got up, and we started to do the zikr. And it was a beautiful practice. There were some friends of ours who were with me in the old days, you know, when I was your age, and I started, and it was wonderful to be with these people. And there were some friends of my kids who were the ones saying, "What's zikr? What are we doing?" And I immediately texted my kids after the zikr was over and said, "You're not going to believe this, who I did zikr with tonight." But and during that zikr, which was very beautiful, and everybody got into it, as we were moving and repeating the phrases, I heard this sentence over and over and over again. I won't say ad nauseum because it was very beautiful, the experience. And the sentence was very simple. And I offer it to you tonight for you to think about. The sentence was, "Oh, so many people pray to God, and so few pray for God." And what was really odd was that at that moment, maybe not now, but at that moment, I understood all the levels of meaning of that. Because everything has many levels of meaning. Everything that's real, truth. I think it wouldn't be necessarily helpful to any of us if I gave a long talk on what that may or may not mean to me. But I do think that it would be helpful if we just stop for a moment and think about this, what it really means. Before we do that, I'll tell you a story. that'll help, I hope, in understanding this phrase. And it's a story about whom? Anybody want to guess? One of the prophets.
Peter?
No, but
Moses.
close. What?
Moses.
Moses, exactly. You know the story?
Probably.
I didn't say it.
Nah,
No.
you're right.
Okay, you could come up here and see. So Moses was walking in the mountains and he passed a shepherd, a young shepherd boy. And the shepherd boy was praying and he said, "Oh God, I love you so much. If you came here and showed yourself to me, I would cook you such a good meal. I would put you in a warm bed. I would protect you from wild animals. I would do whatever I can for you because I just love you so much." Moses walked by and he said to the shepherd, "You know, that's no way to speak about God." He said, "You speak about protecting God from wild animals. God is protection itself." Or making God comfortable in a bed. God brings comfort to the world. God is the great comforter. Cooking good food. Where does food come from? That's no way to speak about God. The shepherd was chagrined. Moses walked away, and suddenly there was the divine presence. And it said, "Moses, what have you done?" Moses said, "I was trying to teach the young boy." "Moses, what have you done?" And he said, "Well, I was trying to uplift." Moses always had good excuses, you know. I was trying to uplift the consciousness and so on. And the presence said, "You have taken one of my beloveds from me. He's now afraid to love me. Is that what you wish to do?" That's the end of the story. There's no magic punchline that everything got better. So again, the phrase, so many pray to God, so few pray for God. Everybody has their own ideal of God. That's the great beauty and mystery of it. Everybody has their own ideal. It's not that my ideal is right and yours is wrong. Unless my ideal says all ideals are right and no ideals are wrong. But each of us in our way find our unique communion, with union, with oneness. And if we don't, then it's all kind of nonsense. If we sit here and say, "I've got it and you don't," how is that praying for God? How is God benefited by the one who says, "I have the answer and you don't"? That's no way to speak to God. Who benefits from that? Certainly not the ideal. So we'll stop for a minute. You don't have to close your eyes or meditate, but you can. Just think about this phrase, just for a minute, approximately a minute. What would it mean to pray for God? Now everybody open your eyes. And everybody, while you're sitting there, just turn and face somebody. So everybody's talking to somebody or facing somebody. Now for 1 minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, just have a conversation on what it means to you.
Wait, I don't have a...
If you don't have a partner, join a group of 2 and make it a group of 3. Just a couple of minutes, so you have to be really pithy. I do have a partner. Yeah, you. So, what routine?
What does it mean to pray for?
Means you.
What did you, and that pray for everything? Everything. Pray for everything, everybody, everything, every. I didn't think of God. Part of it. Yeah, I guess what we do is pray for harmony. Because it's
So there are apparently not.
you put it in that position with your father and mother, for all the
Right.
children to get along. Are you sure? Because of based on what you said. No.
So, can I ask you a question?
This is for you. We saw each other again. I found out later it was the day that we were working in the day that we finished. One other person who was I saw them both that day, and they both talked to me. Both of them have
Which means?
So last time when I saw her 2 months ago.
And here you are. Welcome.
Say hello. How's it coming? Right.
So
I'm looking, but I'm thinking, let me look in the front first. I see I told Todd, did you say hello to Todd?
No, I didn't.
He's the one in the back.
Sitting.
I gave you 2 hugs. I gave 2 hugs.
Did you?
No, time's up. We'll continue it later. Thank you. All right, everybody.
so obviously,
Nice man. Of course, the answer is in the interaction. And just look at the atmosphere. We went from Moses getting kind of a little scolded by God to the joy of this moment. You want this one? Something else happened in the last few days that is kind of interesting, that goes along with this idea, this theme. I think it was just before the New Year, And I received a phone call from a friend of mine in Israel. Some of you know him, I think, Rabbi Fruman. And Rabbi Fruman is an Orthodox rabbi Sufi. He's a very unusual man. He really believes that everybody's right and that God is in everybody. So here's this Orthodox rabbi who lives in a settlement and doesn't believe in settlements. And the only practice he ever wants to do when he sees me is, let's do zikr. And one of his good friends was Yasser Arafat, who was the head of the PLO, wasn't the PLA then. And he believes that the only solution for the dilemma, I was going to say absurdity, but I don't want to be rude. The dilemma in the Middle East, the only solution has to come out of the religions. And there's no benefit for politicians to get a solution. But there is benefit for the religions. So he called me up and he said, first he always says before he goes into a very erudite, clear speech, he said, oh, forgive my English. I don't speak well. He could write a book in English and you would think he's a native speaker, and he doesn't mean it falsely. He's a genuinely humble person. And he said, do you know what shalom means? What does shalom mean?
Peace.
He said, now what does salam mean? I didn't answer, by the way, because I knew it was a trap. So I said to him, what do they mean? And he said, what they really mean is balance. And balance brings peace. And we talked for a while, and he said, so I think that the nomination of John Kerry as Secretary of State is a very good thing. And he told me why, and I always listen quite carefully to what he said and says. And I said, so Menachem, what do you want? I like to find out what people want, it helps. And he said, well, again, I have this idea that the Grand Rabbi of Israel, the great Sheikh of the Palestinians, should come to Washington and together bless Barack Obama. And he said, and I was sitting here and I thought, now who can I suggest this to? So he went and he talked to Netanyahu, who's the Prime Minister of Israel. And he said, I talked to him for an hour. And he, for the first time, went along with the idea. And then he spoke to Abu Mazen, the head of the Palestinian Authority, not Hamas, and he went along with the idea. And he said, now what should I do? I should call my friend Shahabuddin, my brother. So the first thing I said, what do you think the first thing I said was?
Why are you calling me?
No. We were all thinking. I said, you have to throw in a Christian. I said, you can't come to America with a Muslim and a Jew. You have to bring a Christian in. And if you know the dynamics, maybe you do, of the Holy Land, basically the peacemakers, maybe as it should be, are the Christians. Because there are Christian Arabs. And they're really in the middle, and they really can keep the balance of peace. Christians and the Druze. The Druze is another very interesting, very esoteric faith. So he said, okay, no problem. And we talked some more, and that was the end of that. And I hung up and I meditated for a day, and then I called someone, a friend of mine that I know, and he has a friend that he called who is the advisor, I guess, to President Obama on, she's a Muslim, on Muslim affairs, and a few other people, and something's starting to happen. Whether it will actually happen the way it's envisioned, I don't know. Whether anything outwardly will happen, I don't know. But something's starting to happen. And I haven't really told anybody until I'm telling you tonight. I told a few individuals, but why am I telling you? Well, this is my answer to that question about praying for God. God can't make this happen. God, who can create the universe, cannot make this happen. And I remember sitting with a great Sufi sheikh in Turkey, and maybe some of you were there, and he said, what's the one thing that we can bring to God that God doesn't have? And the answer, I answered because I knew the answer. I said, well, the one thing we can bring is our problems. God doesn't have our problems. Well, this is our problem. Creating balance on the planet. Not peace, but balance. I don't know if we're evolved enough yet for peace. I don't think we need to have outer conflict anymore. But to have a whole global community experiencing a state of peace, real peace, not some concept, we're just not made for it yet. You know, we're just not even a chapter, we're just a page or maybe a paragraph in the history of this whole planet. But we happen to be living this particular page. This is our page. So we do need to look at our lives and ask ourselves, what are we being asked to do? Not by something outside of us. Call it your heart, your soul, your intelligence. I use the word God. You don't have to believe in God. But there is some kind of cosmic energy holding this all together. What was the great scientific discovery of 2012?
The boson.
The boson.
The boson. What is it?
God particle.
The God particle.
The God
It's been
particle.
called.
What does it really mean? Well, it means that science is catching up with reality. That there is some breath that holds it all together so the thing doesn't go spinning into oblivion. That there is some connection beyond that which we can experience with our limited consciousness. Mystics have known this for millennia. But now, it's not just a mystic here and a mystic there that knows it. It's being put out to the whole globe. Everybody is invited to know this. Everybody is invited to the party. We're all connected. Here's the beginning of proof. We are all connected. That which you do to the least of them, you do to me, because we're all connected. And it's real. So the way we pray for God is by envisioning the solution, not with our own eyes, but with our cosmic vision of what could be. Rabbi Fruman, who happens to be dying, is not, I hope that he has a miracle. I don't want to say, he's in the process, but let's hope it takes a long time. He's lived 2 more years than anybody thought he would live anyway, any of the physicians. It's not just that he had good political sense or religious sense, but he was open to that cosmicity that is constantly connecting us to oneness. And I don't say this in any way as a rebuke, but we're not very good at listening. It's not our strong suit. We haven't been trained to listen. We've been trained from the moment of our birth that the way you succeed on this planet is by not listening, by doing. Certainly not by listening within. But now is the time, as we're developing a global society, which we are, now is the time to really be the instrument of your own soul. Everyone's soul is God. Everyone's soul. Good people, bad people, rotten people. Every soul is made of the same thing. We have choices. Sometimes we make the right choice. Sometimes we make really the wrong choice. But we can continue to move forward. 1,000 failures can bring success, or they can bring 1,000 more failures. So as we look at our life, we can learn. The fundamental questions, the answers are here. Why am I here? Me. Not why is humanity here? Why am I here? What's the purpose of my life? What can I offer for real? How can this divinity, how can this perfection live through my imperfect being? When I first started on the path, I, like many others, said, why didn't God just make everybody perfect? Then we wouldn't have to go through all this. There would be no death, there would be no famine, there would be no, you know the list. And still to this day, everybody asks, not everybody, many people ask me when they begin, how could a good and compassionate God allow this person to starve and allow this person to be born into an abusive family, and on and on and on. After a while, I really experienced that there is nothing but God. So, if I'm suffering, it is God that suffers. If I'm joyous, it's God that's joyous. There is no God separate from any of us. Anything separate from us is conceptual. And the temple or the church that really exists for us to worship in is right inside of us. It's wonderful to have religions. We need them. What does religion mean?
Realign.
Literally.
Realign, remember.
Remember, it's
Bind back. Bind back.
yes, connect. Connect. It's our duty to connect. We need that. We need to connect with each other. We need to connect with ourselves. To realign, that's a very good definition. But anything that separates is not realignment. It's wonderful to have different paths. It's not wonderful when they believe they are the only path. So what can we do? We here, we can practice zikr. As long as we're all in the cult together now. You know, some of us are getting a little older and it's kind of exciting to be in a cult. There was someone at this party who is just a phenomenally realized person and a great Buddhist teacher, very high being. And she asked me just before the zikr, after I made my cult remark, she said, "Are we really a cult?" And I said, "No, we don't have the sex, the money, or the guns." So, or the drugs, yes. Well, I don't know. Water is a drug. You know, anything you imbibe is a drug. It changes your state. And it heals. That's the other thing. Students often ask me my feeling about it. Should we take drugs? Some people should, some people shouldn't. I don't personally think that you get much from many drugs, but there are some that are very beneficial if used the right way. It seems that Washington and Colorado agree with me. But I really mean it. If anything that changes the consciousness that's used the right way, at the right time, is helpful. If it's not the right time, don't do it. So I have students who are really high who've never taken any stimulant in their life because it was never the right thing for them. And you know, I always think of the story of, you know who not Swami Ramdas, Baba Ramdas is? Well, when he first went to Nimkaroli Baba, he went and Bhagwan Das took him there. And we were all children at the time, you know, I was like 20 years old. And they went with this magic elixir called LSD. And it was still legal then, by the way. If you can imagine, really the old days. And he said they each took they had LSD soaked pills and they each took a pill. And they were tripping and he said, "So what are you doing?" And they told him, we're tripping on this acid. And he said, "Really, what is it?" And they said, "Oh, it's this magic drug. You can take one and da-da-da-da-da." And he said, "Oh, let me see." And he took the bottle, and he took the whole bottle. He said, "Mild." You know, nothing to even comment about compared to the states he was in. So, whatever you do, you need to do it as if you're praying for God. So we have a little time left. I want us to practice zikr together. The words mean it doesn't really matter. You know, the meaning doesn't mean anything, but there are some people who are very resistant if they don't know the literal meaning. The literal meaning is, it's Arabic phrase, La ilaha illallah. And La ilaha means there is no God. Illallah, except God, who is everything. So if you look at the the phrase, it really means everything is God. There is nothing that isn't God. The meaning is not important. The sounds are what affect us and affect us deeply. La ilaha illallah. All of the l and ah sounds touch our heart center. Touch this place here, which is the seat of our soul. So, it's not my birthday, but I could make believe it is and say, everybody has to do this. But you don't have to listen to that. But try the sound. Don't, just join and remember the principle, we're all connected. And when we share repetition of sacred sounds, sounds that have come through revelation, it reconnects us, and we re-experience the state of connection. We're experiencing the true religion, not a religion that has a name or a form, and you can't sign up and you can't join, but it is the true realignment. So if you don't know the practice, just listen and then join in. If you do know it, feel free. We move the head from the heart in the left breast over the right shoulder and then back into the physical heart on the left. As we do this, we're sweeping across the other two heart centers, the secret one in the center and the spiritual one on the right. There are three parts that make up the heart. So the head goes from the left over the right shoulder and back down to the left. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Do it in one breath, the whole phrase in one breath. La ilaha illallah. 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 illallah, 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 illallah. Allah, 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 Allah. Oh, 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 oh. Ya Allah, Holy, Holy Mother, we pray for our families, sisters, brothers, parents, children, grandparents, aunts, uncles, in-laws, beyond. We pray for you in remembering our families. Ya Allah, Holy Mother, we remember our friends and we pray for you in remembering our friends. Ya Allah, Holy, Holy Mother, Divine Mother, we pray for you. And we remember all those who seek you, who seek closeness to you in whatever path or whatever way. Ya Allah, Holy Mother, we pray for you in remembering the guides, the teachers of humanity. Who act as bridges between our limitation and our perfection. Ya Allah, Holy, Holy Mother, we pray for you in remembering ourselves, this unique, glorious form, this representation of the infinite and formless love. Ya Allah, Holy Mother, we pray for you in remembering our planet, our connection with all sentient beings, all feeling beings, in remembering the mountains, the oceans, the sun, the moon, the air, the spirit. pray for you. And in this moment, we open to your blessing, your presence, your breath. We live and breathe and have our being in you, and you have your being in us. We are both the fish in the ocean and the ocean in the fish. Each passing through each other.